yes, you put in a hard day's work, but do not let it consume you. You have to balance your life. You're actually more productive when you balance your life. You put in the day's work, and sometimes if you have those projects you have to get done, it's all about time management. So you just have to have the time management in place where you're not burning yourself out, because you can suffer burnout in this business if you let it happen to you.
Welcome to The Defense Never Rests with Morgan and Akins, your monthly dose of uncommon sense about all things legal and some that are not.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of The Defense Never Rests. I'm your host, Megan Henry, again, joined by my favorite co-host, Melissa. Hi, Melissa.
Oh, thank you so much. How are you?
I'm great this morning. And I'm excited that today we have on Derrick Mullen, who he is Assistant VP of Claims at Seneca Insurance, but has been in the industry for over 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And mostly with the same company, which you don't hear of very much anymore.
No. That's fantastic. He must, I mean, I'm sure he has some tips that he could fill us in on, because that's a long time to be in one industry.
Yes. And, he also played college basketball, and he brings in this whole, team aspect mentality to, claims and how management and how his company's run and how he runs his team. And
Wow.
I think it's just a great takeaway, and how his company's managed from the top down, I think is great. So with that, let's bring him in. Good morning, Derrick. Welcome to The Defense Never Rests. I'm so happy to have you. How are you this morning?
I'm doing pretty good. And yourself?
I'm great. I mean, I'm good, but it's almost May. I think it's like 45 degrees out in New Jersey, and I'm not happy. I just went on a walk with my neighbor and her dog, and I had to wear my winter coat. So I'm not thrilled with that, but it's sunny.
Well, we can take the sun, as long as it's not cold, rainy, and snowy. And so we'll take what we can get and wait for the later. Later on, we'll start complaining that it's too hot.
I know. I always remind myself that, like, whenever I complain about it's cold, I'm like, oh, but in July and August, we all complain that it's so hot and humid and how miserable it is. So,
we had a teaser though a couple of weeks ago where it was like 75 and sunny and perfect, and then I think the next week it snowed.
Yeah. You know what I did? I had like all these like seedlings growing in my house, like, like, I don't know, but cilantro and stuff. I was like, oh, great. I'll put it outside, and now they're all dead.
Yeah, I know. It's cruel. It was cruel.
Anyway, we're not here to talk about my lack of gardening skills. I have no green thumb, and I kill everything.
Me neither.
I'm amazed this plant over here is still alive, but it's kind of hanging on by a thread.
I have to say though, it's just real quick. I have 3 succulent plants because I figured succulents, you don't have to care for them too much. But they were dying. They just were dying. They were in a perfect sunlight. I was like giving them water, and then I was just annoyed with them, so I put them over there, and they're thriving now that I have forgotten about them completely.
Yeah, that's
so exactly. So there's pro tip for anybody who has plants in there. Just let them do their thing. They don't need you.
Yeah. Well, we're not here to talk about plants.
Sorry.
Well, no, it's fine. But last I checked, this isn't a gardening podcast. Maybe we'll do an offshoot.
Maybe it should be.
Melissa and I talking about how we ignore our plants and we don't know what we're doing.
That's
so
right.
Follow our tips.
Yeah, exactly. Experts.
We're here to talk about Derrick and claims. So, Derrick, you've been in claims for a really long time. But how did you get there? Like, because your background is you have an engineering and science background. So how did that segue into claims? Please tell me.
Well, actually, honestly, I do have an computer engineering degree. I graduated from Gardner Webb University, and back in the mid to late 80s, early 90s, trying to find something in the computer field was a bit difficult, bit challenging. So I really this just goes back way in memory. Sitting in my late grandparents' house and looking through the paper trying to find jobs. Then I see this big ad in the sports section. Believe it or not, Hartford Insurance. Hartford Insurance, entry level, inside claims rep, college degree, no experience. So I said, well, let me give this a shot here. I needed a job. And I said, I knew nothing about insurance, to be honest with you, other than my parents used to pay my car insurance. But other than that, I knew nothing about insurance. I said, this is going to be a quick stop where it's just going to be a bridge until I get a job in the computer field. And, 20 some odd, 30, actually 30 some odd years later, I'm still doing the same thing. I guess I was good at it. I liked what I was doing. I was hungry back then. I was very hungry for knowledge. I wanted to learn. And I had quite a few mentors that kind of pushed me through. And probably 2 or 3 years into it, I got a call from Xerox, Canon Rico, Con Edison. They called me up, for opportunity. And by that time, the money that I was making in the insurance industry was more than what they were going to pay me. And I had a young family at that point in time. So, and I learned to just love the industry. And that's why I'm still here. And gonna retire as an insurance professional, and it's been a rewarding career for me, to be honest with you. It's been a long road, but it's had its ups and downs. But at the end of the day, it's I've made a pretty good living off of it. Raised two beautiful adult daughters, and got me a nice home, and I get to it was really a rewarding looking back on the long and hard road that I had. So that's how I started. Never look back.
Well, what I think, what sticks out to me too is like, I find it knowing how things are now with, tech. It's crazy to think that you graduated and that, with a computer engineering degree, and like, I didn't have, ample opportunities at that time. Whereas now, like, I don't know, you see all the things about tech careers, and it's like a total 180. But I'm so happy that you saw that ad, and you took the turn to insurance, and then made just a wonderful career for yourself out of it.
It was kind of smart for them to put the ad in the sports section.
Yes.
Right? Because they knew you were going to see it, right?
Look, I don't know. I can't speak on, that's the first thing I used to look at in the papers, the sports section.
Good
Then I go
marketing
to the
there.
other stuff. So look, maybe they were targeting a specific type, of person. But, it's funny that my first interview there, I played college basketball, and the first thing we were talking about was sports. I think that probably carried, probably was an asset to me getting to where I am today, is, my sports background as well, because a lot of times you're sitting there getting interviewed and they're interested in your sporting career and stuff. So it's just opened up a lot of channels for me, college, sports, and how they kind of wrote me in through sports by putting an ad in the sports section in the paper.
And it seems like so many of the claims adjusters that we speak with, they didn't necessarily, graduate college or high school thinking that, oh, I want to go into claims. Like that wasn't their dream when they were a kid. But then they get there and they love it. And like, what do you think your strength was specifically that sort of like lent you to this job?
Well, I think one of my strengths was, like my late grandfather instilled in me determination, hard work, and I remember when I first started in the industry, where one of my mentors, one of the attorneys at the law firm, said to me that, Derrick, you're going to have to work twice as hard as everyone else to get to where you're going. And it was always instilled in me through my parents, my grandparents, that I'm going to work as hard as I can. And I think that when you're working, especially in claims, you have to treat the money as if it's your money. You're going to be fair and reasonable. You're not going to be taken advantage of. But I just really think that it's something to where somebody would say, Derrick, you can't do it. But I always say I can do it. And no matter what I'm doing, if it's playing basketball, trying to make the basketball team, or if it's having goals to one day becoming a vice president or a senior vice president of the company, those were my goals. So I think my determination and hard work and my consistency, and just being consistent as to what I'm doing, not waiting to, it's review time, so let me work a little bit harder. I just and work, and also working not by a clock. I don't look at a clock when I work. I'm like a doctor. I'm like a surgeon. I'm on call all the time. And, I always in claims, just like claims is customer service as well. You treat others as you want to be treated. And I think that goes a long way. Be professional and just give it an honest day's work. Be honest with yourself when you are doing things. Just be diligent and try to take the extra mile, just like the movie Pursuit to Happiness, where he didn't take water breaks. The odds were against him. He found ways to get the edge on others. And for me, it's just natural. I work hard. I don't like to leave any stones unturned. And it's just all about the desire you have inside, and it'll take you as far as you want to go. So
Well, it's
that's just
obviously worked out for you.
yeah. So
That's great advice.
yeah.
And did you and you mentioned you have two adult daughters. Are they have any interest in following your career path, or did they just go a completely separate way from you?
What they always say about their old dad is that insurance is boring. My older daughter, who's turning 29 tomorrow, actually is she has a major in operation management, and she's going to she's going into physical therapy. She's looking to own her own physical therapy company. And my younger daughter is actually followed in my footsteps that I wanted to do. She graduated from Wagner College and has a degree in computer science. And she's, pursuing her career in IT. She's actually running a company remotely, running their IT department. So she's actually doing what I dreamed of doing way back when. So but they have no interest in the insurance field other than me paying their car insurance. That's pretty much it.
Well, I guess they learned one thing, the same thing that you knew when you applied to that job, that you knew that your parents paid your car insurance.
Yes.
But
exactly.
they did. I see a theme that they did learn the hard work and determination from you, though, because it sounds like you have two very successful, hardworking daughters. They might not be insurance, but they followed your footsteps and they saw your example and followed it.
Yeah, exactly. They worked hard. I mean, obviously they grew up in a different time where there were a lot more opportunities, but they're a lot smarter than I am anyway. But they work hard. They worked hard. They went to school. They went to grad school. I mean, they've achieved a lot of things, and they're going to surpass me financially at some point in time. They're going to be a lot more successful than I ever was because there's just more opportunity. Times have changed, and my career is somewhat, I'm almost halfway through it. I'm going to be near retirement, someday soon. So I've probably reached my peak as far as being sharp at what I do and being successful as what I do. But what I instilled in my daughters, it's just hard work. Just be honest with yourself and try to be the best. And that's all you have to. All you have to do is just try to be the best. Yeah, I just instill hard work and just be the best. I always say I watched the movie Men of Honor when the Robert De Niro asked Cuba Gooding Jr. what makes you try so hard, and he says my father always said be the best. So just try to be the best at what you do, no matter what you do. It could be washing your car. It could be the way you dress for success. And just like I said, because that's something that they can't take away from you. If you give it your very best and you are the best, there's something that they can't say that they can't take that away from you. So if I gave them anything, that's what they got from me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and one thing that I thought of when you were talking about how you're nearing kind of the end of your career and your arc, how do you feel about that? Like, are you like, sweet, now I get to soon enough I'm walking into the next phase, or do you have a feeling of like, oh, like shit, like a little, or is it a little bit of both?
Well, it's one where we talk at my job. We have some younger greenhorns that came through, and and me and a couple of the other people have been at my company for a very long time, and say, you know what, you guys are the heir to the throne here. And so sometimes you think about it and you say to yourself, you know, wow, it's just seemed like it was just yesterday when you first started in this career, and now you've been into this industry for 30 some odd years. You've met friends, you've lost people who you've worked with before who's passed on, and you remember those people. Especially for me, some of my mentors who were my age at the time when I started my career after college and stuff, and how some of them have passed on due to age, um, and now I look at myself as like, wow, I'm in that position that they were in back when I started, where I'm mentoring and teaching and watching the industry grow. And this industry has really grown because there are more and more people that are really into and interested in the insurance industry. We're getting a lot more younger people who are interested. Well, back in the day, you couldn't really find people who were really interested. Insurance was kind of last on the totem pole. When you took a college survey, nobody wanted to do it. But now things are opening up. It's really an opportunity for a lot of the younger people. So I'm blessed to be able to extend and give my knowledge and give my advice to some of the younger professionals that's coming into the industry.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a eye opener when that day comes, when it says, it's time for me to pack up, and it's not it's goodbye, but I'll be around, that type of thing. I think I still will be somewhat contributing to the insurance industry. That could be as a consultant or maybe a mediator of some sort like that. So I see myself walking away from the actual claims department, but still being used as a resource up until whenever my mind starts to go where I cannot contribute animent, which
Yeah.
I hope doesn't happen, but who
I hope
knows?
I hope so
Yeah.
too. And that is something I've heard a lot. It's a theme that whenever I talk to seasoned veterans in the industry, that walking away from claims doesn't come easy. I've talked to people who've walked away and then came back. I actually have multiple people have walked away and then come back, and others who just you keep staying involved. And I think it's true for the legal industry too. I think lawyers have a very hard time just
Letting
retiring.
go.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
I think as and I mean, maybe it goes with other industries as well, but I think you've spent so much of your life doing this, and you're so passionate about it. It's hard just to be like, okay, I'm done. I don't.
You can't just turn your brain off to it. You
Yeah.
can't.
No, you can't turn it off. And sometimes, just like my daughter played college basketball, I played basketball. At some point in time, it's time where you say, you know what, it's just time to do it. And I know some people. One of my mentors retired like 10 years ago. I still keep in touch with him, and he's enjoying his retired life. He's traveling and doing things, and he was. They even tried to drag him back in to try to be a consultant, because no, I said, I'm retired with my wife. I'm just going to enjoy my life. I put in my hard work. Where you have some people who, it's like a football coach of, say like a Joe Paterno, for instance. When Joe Paterno was coaching, he was lively. Nobody knew he was sick. When he stepped away from the game, he sort of faded away fast. So some people really need that connect where they still need to be part of something. If it's just like football players, sometimes you don't have a backup plan, and then when you don't have a backup plan, there could be problems. I have a backup plan, so I have other things in my life other than insurance,
Sure.
So it's always good to again, it's always good to plan. You don't want to consume your life in something where you're putting all your eggs in one basket, because if it's ever taken away, you need really something else to fall back on. So, and that's what I try to tell people. And I also try to tell people as well, the younger people especially, is yes, you put in a hard day's work, but do not let it consume you. You have to balance your life. You're actually more productive when you balance your life. You put in the day's work, and sometimes if you have those projects you have to get done, it's all about time management. So you just have to have the time management in place where you're not burning yourself out, because you can suffer burnout in this business if you let it happen to you. So it's one where you're, especially when we're working remotely, where I think the industry is more going to like a flexible schedule where you're going to be working remotely at times. Some people are isolated and some people don't have discipline as to when to turn off the switch, when to go take a walk. And what I tell people is just because you work more than somebody else doesn't mean that you're more productive than somebody else, because it's all about what you're doing within that time. If your time management is poor, you're going to be, it's like trying to mow grass, but then you have a lawnmower that's not cutting very well. And then you can keep doing it over and over again and still not done well. You have to, I find out the best claims professionals are sharp, which means that they are sharp, they're rested, their life is balanced. They're not putting everything all in one basket to where they're burning themselves out. And then when you burn yourselves out, you make mistakes, you get irritable, and you don't really look forward to anything else. So sometimes you just got to say, you know what, I'm taking my vacation. I'm not responding to emails. I'm not going to look at my emails. I'm taking my week off. Take your week off, get your rest, because the work's not going anywhere. It's going to be there when you get back. So it's all about learning how to balance your life and balance your work, just to keep everything as a whole and not focus just on one aspect to where it's do or die.
How do you do that though? Like, for instance, how, like you specifically, how do you turn off your brain? Because sometimes when I have like a heavy claim that I'm working on, or like a real bad accident, if it's a personal injury case, they stay with you. We're still human beings. We're reviewing things. We're reviewing medical records. Whatever the claim might be, it stays with you. Like, how do you find ways to kind of turn that off so you can have a normal life as well?
Well, I equate a claim, excuse my expression, but I equate a claim to like a vehicle, a car. So when you work on a claim file, can you spend all day working on that one claim file? Just like a car, does a mechanic spend all day working on one customer's car? No, they have to balance out and say, okay, I'm going to spend, like I always say, have a schedule for your day. So from usually some people say, you know what, some people are stronger when they wake up in the morning. They're more focused on stuff. So you take the most difficult stuff and you do that first. So, say for instance, you have to review medical records and you need to spend a couple of hours looking at the medical records. Just mark that and say, you know what, I'm going to spend Monday, I'm going to get up 8 o'clock in the morning and I'm going to review those medical. And then you have another schedule, say, okay, I'm done with that. And you have to learn to move on from that because, for instance, I'll give you an example. I just worked on a 15-page case evaluation. I couldn't finish the 15 pages in one day, nor was I going to try. So what I do is I say, you know what, know your due dates. So that's the key. When is it due? So if it's, say, you know what, I have a week to get this done. So then you start, you have to balance out and say, okay, I'm going to spend 30 minutes a day working on this here till I get it done. So you have to have the time management to get it done. Now, if you are always under pressure and under the gun, that means something is wrong. Either you're just being bombarded with too much work or you're not managing your time carefully, because again, claims, you're right, it does live with you. You can go to bed, and if you go into bed and you're thinking about, oh God, I got to finish this report here, and I got this big meeting I got to prepare for, and
dreaming about settlement values and
right.
at night, haunting.
Right. I can't speak for everyone else. How I handle these things is, I just have a schedule. I know my strengths. I know that certain parts of the day I get tired and I'm going to be less productive. So there's a, you have your day where you can set aside, okay, now I'm going to return phone calls. Okay, I'm going to call this person back, that person back, that person back. And if you're going to review medical records, or if you're going to review a bill of particulars, or you're going to review a statement from the insured, it's really about just writing down the time, just keeping track of your time, because if you're spending too much time on one thing, then you're going to fall behind on the other stuff.
Yeah, got to move on.
Right. Now, if you're preparing for, like, some attorneys, well, I'm not an attorney, but some attorneys are preparing for trial. They basically have to drop everything that they're doing to prepare for that trial.
Right.
Again, you're not going to have, if you have 3 or 4 trials then at the same time, then that's a problem. But
That is a problem.
Right.
Yes.
That's a problem.
But
any attorney who heard this just really cringe.
right. So but look, if you're taking vacation or you're taking a couple of days off, that's just to recharge your battery. You need to recharge. You need to really step away. My CEO, he goes to Africa and everywhere else. Nobody can get a hold of him when he's out for 2 weeks. So I said, look, if he's entitled and he tells me, Derrick, you need to do this thing. You need to walk away. When you can't overwork, you can't work 15 hours a day. It's not productive. You have to really take that, seriously. So it's all about writing down. If you got a busy schedule, write down the time. Say, okay, I'm going to attack this at 10 o'clock. I'm gonna work on this from 10 to 11:30, and if I can't finish the day, then the next day I will take another day and say, okay, I'm gonna work on this from 10 to 11:30. And sometimes, you know what? Unfortunately, in this business that we're in, we may have to take, if we're not doing anything and we're home that weekend, or we can get up. There's times that I've gotten up at 3, 4 in the morning. I go to bed early because sometimes you're shot, you can't really contribute anything, and you can't really, your eyes start getting cloudy. And so I'm misspelling stuff. I said, look, let me get some sleep, wake up. I got this from college, actually, where I did a lot of my studying and stuff. Sleeping early, then waking up at like 3, 4 in the morning, and where my mind is fresh and just get things done. And sometimes if you do have those heavy projects and there is some sort of a deadline, sometimes you may have to put in that extra time. That may not be company time. It may be your own personal time. So you may have to get up at 5 in the morning that Saturday morning before you take your kids out to the great adventures or something, and say, let me spend a few hours here, get this done here. But once you step away from that computer, once you go out and stuff, that's your time, and you just have to really balance that. And look, if sometimes I've had people come to me and says, look, I'm overwhelmed. I have so many things to do. I feel like, and I just say, okay, what do you have? Tell me what you're doing. Tell me what the situation is. Because it's always important to speak up as well. If you're feeling like you're in, because it can be a quicksand. Once you fall behind on one thing, you start falling behind on other stuff, then that's when people get discouraged. So it's all about also communicating with management and stuff, where if it's somewhat, because it does get overwhelming at times. Because say, for instance, 3 or 4 people on vacation. Like this week, one of my guys is out in Croatia. The death in the family. The other guy caught COVID. So guess what? Derrick is running the entire claim department, and I'm doing a bunch of stuff. And I just came back from California on Sunday at 2 in the morning, so I had jet lag for a few days. This was one of those trying weeks that I've had where I had to balance. Where I finally went into my boss yesterday and said, Frank, I'm really overwhelmed here. I said, I really need, I need to leave for the day. So I left for the day, got home, slept a couple hours, which I really needed. And I got back on a horse again, and I just did it again. So it's all about being able to adapt and, being able to just speak with people. So sometimes you can speak to a coworker and pick up the phone and say, look, can you handle this for me here? I have to really do this here. Or can you assist me on this here? So it really works out, especially at my company. We're team players, where I step in for people where, a guy was sick yesterday, wasn't feeling well. So you know what? I'm going to step in, do a few things for him. That way, when he comes back, he's not overwhelmed. Or you could also speak to some people where there's people that takes vacation. And when they come back from vacation, I'm not going to start giving them new claims. I'm just like, give them a day to catch up on their emails and do some things. You don't overwhelm them. So you have to really think smart and be practical as well when you're working claims and when you have a staff. And again, it's all about teamwork. Sometimes, I have to work on this here. Can you help me with this here?
Right.
And that's what's being a team. It's all about. That's what makes a company very successful. Just as my company, we're very successful. We've been working together for years, and we work as a team, and that's how you're successful. One falls behind, you help the other one up, bring them up to speed, and that's how you go.
So do you think your experience as like a college athlete really like provided you the basis in that time management? Because, in college you have your basketball practice and you have to juggle that with schoolwork and things. So you really early on had to learn how to manage your time very efficiently.
Yes, I actually, team sports. I played football in high school, basketball. I played basketball in college. But if you look at it, and my CEO is a college referee, and he
Wow.
says that he organizes his company as he would a football organization. You have your coaches, you have your assistant coaches, um, and going back to college. College helped prepare me as far as time management, because remember, I had to balance sports, classes. I had to balance, participating in music. So, and everything was a schedule. You had to spend a certain amount of time working on your academics. Go to study hall, you had to work in study hall. Then you had to do 2-3 hours of practice. So I think it really helped me, and I did struggle, just like most athletes did struggle, where I did have, a financial, not a financial aid, but I had a student, one of student advocates where we were a mentor, but he kind of helped you along and stuff, like, especially as a freshman in college. You're trying to go here, we're here, what do I do here? And then all of a sudden, if you have to cram for a test, but then you got practice at 6 a.m., not, back in those
Right.
days, coaches were like, look, son, we gave you a scholarship for here to play ball, not do, you could take some basket and weaving courses, Um, but even basketball, like learning the plays, it helps you pick up on things quickly. That's why I think it helped me as being a quick learner. You pick up on different things, learning plays, following direction, taking direction, being a teammate, being a team player. And I think that's what attracted a lot of carriers to me, because of my background as far as being a team player, because that's the most important part. Can you work well with others? And I think working well with others on the basketball court helped, flow over to the work industry, the employment industry. And it really helped. By the time I became a senior, I was a mentor to a freshman on the team to help them. So, okay, these are your classes here. You have required study hall. You have to do it at this time here. So everything was on a schedule. And I found out that really helped when I went into the employment industry, of how keeping things scheduled can help you along. And it helps because it breaks it down. Instead of just one lump sum here, you're breaking it down into sections. Okay, here you're going to do this, here you're going to do that, here you're going to do that. And then it keeps everything an even flow. And then, like I said, it really did help in the insurance industry as far as time management, team play, and able to organize. And that's one of the strengths that a lot of good claims professionals have, is being organized and using their time efficiently. Because sometimes you can use your time, but if you don't use it efficiently, then you're sort of wasting time.
Right.
Yeah, you're like speaking my language, because I think back to even high school, I always had like one of those paper daily planners, and I would schedule out, like, from this time to this time I'm going to study this class, and then from this, and I still do it today with working on cases. I block it out. I'm like, okay, I have my checklist, and I schedule out my time. Now, does it work exactly? No, but I need that to be like, to compartmentalize what I'm going to do when, whether even be like, okay, this is when I'm going to go through emails. This is when I'm going to do phone calls. And I also structured after, like, okay, I know my kids are going to be home at this point. So if I want to do any heavy thinking, it's not going to happen after, 3:45, when they're coming and bothering me asking for snacks every 10 minutes. Something I learned in COVID too, to have to like
Have snacks ready at all times.
Yep.
Can't even get started on the snack basket. But I love hearing like about your background in sports, and kind of how it just seamlessly parlayed over to Seneca, and like you kind of found the perfect spot for yourself. Like, it sounds like your CEO and you are like a great fit, and how he runs this company, and how you kind of fit into the whole package. So it's like you found your unicorn.
Yeah, look, it's funny. I sat with my CEO a few weeks ago, and we sort of we have the same type of personality. We like myself, I'm kind of no nonsense, but I get along well with others. But I'm a businessman. I always think of the bottom line, and I do take things. Sometimes I take them very, personal. Like I take my claims personal. If my claim is being reviewed by by an auditor and stuff, I just look for perfection, and it's nothing wrong with that. But you have to realize that nobody's perfect. But I try, I always you always try to be as good as you can be, to where if you were reviewing another person's file, what would you look for? What would what characteristics are you looking for? Are you looking for somebody who's putting in a lot more hours, or are you looking for someone who's working 9 to 5, and then after that you don't hear from them again until the next day where they shut everything off? But this company has been great to me. I've only been at actually 3 companies, but it's really 2. I started at Hartford, then I went to Crum and Foster, but then I went to Seneca, but then Crum and Foster purchased Seneca, so I wound up being back here anyway. But I've been at this company. In June will be 26 years at Seneca, and I have to say it's been greatly rewarding, and it's very little turnover, especially in the claims department. Underwriting is a bit different because underwriting is just the biggest portion of any carrier underwriting. So, but for claims, it's been like a family here. I've had opportunities to go elsewhere, but I feel at home here, and I just feel like everyone's family. The CEO of the company has treated me very fair and has rewarded me for my hard work, as well as my senior vice president and all my peers and coworkers have been very supportive of me. And it's all about just, I always, like I said, I treat people the way I want to be treated. And you treat people with respect and working with others, and that's the key to being successful, is being able to, it's like you can have a coach of a team where the players can't stand them, and you may not really get much out of those players because they're disgruntled. But if you can find that medium where, you know what, we will die for this coach here, we will give him everything that we got. And that's how I feel about my company. That's how I feel about my CEO or my senior vice president. I will give them everything I got. When I go to mediations, they'll say, Derrick, you need to settle this case here. And I say, you know what? I'm either going to settle this case or they're going to carry me out on the shield. It's been a real great ride at Seneca Insurance Company, and I wouldn't take any other company over this company here.
I love hearing that, because I mean, in these days people move around so much, and there's nothing wrong with moving around either. But I also like it's hard to find these days someone who's spent the majority of their career at one place and speaks so fondly of it. So it kind of, I have this like warm feeling around my heart right now hearing that. But in your time, how have you witnessed the insurance industry change and evolve?
Well, we could start back from the yeah, I probably going back when I left Hartford, we were on paper files, and then when I got to Seneca Insurance Company, we were still doing paper files. So one of the things that's changed is the automation, as far as technology, and some of the old guard, I may be guilty of it a bit too, even though I was a computer guy. Oh, I gotta have my paper file. I can't live without the paper file. Just what's changed. Just change was just the automation, computer the technology, the way that everything used to be by mail. Now everything's by email. It's not even you really don't get phone calls anymore. Everything is email because everybody wants something documented. The other changes that I'm seeing is also a lot of younger people are entering the insurance industry, to where back then you didn't really have a lot of younger people that were interested in the insurance industry. What we're doing and a lot of carriers are doing now is we're setting up, college days where college fairs where, we are having tables inviting students to come over and try to recruit students, college graduates to the insurance industry. The pay has definitely gotten better. I think that's another attraction as well. And also now, unfortunately, because of COVID, the flex schedules as far as being able to work from home and then, coming into the office a few times a week, I think that's a big attraction
Yeah.
to a lot of the young talent. What you do see these days, though, however, is he's alluding to, like, I'm one of the rare breeds that stays at a company this long. You have a lot of people that are just moving because they feel that they get bigger salary boosts when you move. So sometimes you get 15% boost every time you move. So, and there's nothing wrong with that, uh, but that's just life in general. People move around. You're entitled to make more money if you're being offered more money elsewhere. I think there's more litigation now than there ever was back then. I just think that's because you have social media, you have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. There's more advertisements. There's billboards everywhere. Back in the day, I mean, I've tripped and fell when I was a kid. My parents didn't sue anybody, but now if you break a nail these days, there's a claim being filed. So there's a lot more claims being filed. There's a lot more litigation being filed these days. So then there's more of a need for more claims professionals out there, and there's uh, underwriting business has increased as a whole as far as company profits are concerned. Companies have grown throughout the years, and especially during this pandemic here, companies have thrived financially. The carriers have. I mean, other industries have not so much, such as law firms, investigators, just businesses in general. But carriers have really benefited from this COVID pandemic to where we are more flexible now. We can hire more talent. We can be more competitive with salaries. So the industry is really evolved as far as the amount of claims coming in, the type of claims that's coming in. The plaintiff attorneys are more creative. There's more specialized talent as far as attorneys and insurance in general. There's a lot more. For instance, you may have claims professionals that specialize in bond claims. You may have claims professionals that specialize in just labor law claims. So back in the day, you just had a claims professional that just handled everything. You had these multi-line, and I think we're not really into more of the multi-line. I think we're more into the specialized as far as the profession is concerned. These underwriters are writing specific types of books, and they want specific types of claims people with a specific talent to handle those particular types of claims. So it's not one where you have a geo examiner that can handle first party property and handle workers comp and handle auto. Those I mean, you still have some that some carriers still may have some people like that, but I think that's kind of grown out to where you have specialized departments, such as at Seneca. We have a property department and we have a casualty department. We don't really have one person that's doing both. We want to really specialize, and that's what gives us a advantage in the market as far as pricing, to where we can say that we have specialized professionals that handle this particular line of business. So that's changed pretty much. I think also what's changed is that there's more networking. Back when I worked at Hartford, I had no clue who underwriting was. I never met an underwriter. I mean, maybe there was an inter-office memo or something in those 3 snap outs that we had, but now underwriting and claims are intertwined. I mean, there's not a day where I don't go into speak to an underwriter or two and chat, talk. If there's something about a particular risk that we're concerned about, I can pick up the phone, or I can send an email to underwriting and alert them. So there's more communication now than way back when, where back when underwriting was considered the king of the throne, and claims were just like on a low totem pole, and we couldn't speak with these people. Now it's open. We're having there's a lot of different expos and insurance seminars where you have a mixed bag of insurance professionals. You can have marketing, underwriting, claims, accounting. So it's more of, I think it's more intertwined now than way back when where one didn't know what the other was doing. And that makes it better for the insurance industry, because wouldn't an underwriter like to know that, you know what, there's something wrong with this property here. Upon our investigation here, you may want to send a loss control inspector out there to take a look. And it gives the underwriter a chance to say, look, we're going to either non-renew this, or we're going to raise our price here. So the communication aspect between claims and underwriting has certainly took a turn for the better, in my opinion. And just having, and I don't know about other companies, but me having access to my CEO, to way back when, I didn't know who the CEO of Hartford was, other than I saw a check that I got that was signed by by the president and CEO. Being able to go into the office, being able to talk, being able to be open and honest about certain aspects, and being a part of executive committee meetings, to where you didn't even hear about these things way back when with low level claims professionals. So just the entire industry as a whole has grown, and I think it's grown for the better, and I think it's going to even get better as time goes on. It should be. So those are the few things that I'm seeing. I'm seeing more. There's more diversity in the industry than back when. Like I said, back in my day of Hartford, I probably was one of the few minorities that was working in claims. Now it's, and I'm so happy to see. I'm seeing, CEOs and presidents and vice presidents. I mean, of minority descent, and that's going to continue to grow as well. And it's a good thing, because it does attract more minorities towards the insurance industry, to where way back when there was just really not that much attraction, and there was no outreach to a lot of minorities to enter the insurance industry. So that's changed as a whole, and I think that's going to grow as well in the industry. So just a lot of changes, but I say they are are on a positive note, and I think it's just going to get better and better as time goes on.
What do you think your specialty is? I know you mentioned that, like, some adjusters have a specialty. What do you think is your gift to the industry?
I always consider myself I give myself the title, the negotiator. I'm the guy that,
I think that should be your tagline on your email.
It should be.
Yeah, I travel, I handle a lot of coverage issues. I specialize in coverage. I specialize in handling high impact claims, such as fatality claims, labor law cases. I handle a lot of mediations. I travel quite a bit throughout the United States. I attend mediations. I can have mediations with 70, 80 plaintiffs involved, habitability mediations. I specialize, actually, I specialize in handling lawsuits against the carrier. So if there's any suits filed by the policyholder against the carrier, I'm involved in those type claims as well. So I do have some involvement in first party property claims as well. But my specialty is general liability. I'm in casualty. That's what I do. I handle, from broken kneecaps to somebody with 5 gunshot wounds.
Wow.
To a fatality. So I do specialize in more of the BI, bodily injury side of the spectrum at Seneca here, but I also handle a lot of heavy third-party property losses as well, such as fire claims, flood damages, again, a breach of habitability claims where people are living in substandard conditions. And when you have these class action suits that's being filed. So I would say probably 85 to 90% of my caseload is probably in litigation.
Right.
And I deal a lot with attorneys. I manage a lot of attorneys that's on our panel, pretty much give them direction, work together, get the cases resolved. In a lot of cases, as most of the industries knows is a lot of cases don't go to trial. A lot of them are mediated. So I step in, I do a lot of mediations. I enjoy mediations, actually. I like them in person. That's one thing I don't like about Zoom is that
Zoom and yeah.
but unfortunately with COVID, things went to Zoom, and now companies are actually saying, "Wow, this is a money saver here. We don't have to send our people out on flights and hotels. We could do things by Zoom." But there's sometimes you do need, in specific cases, you do need that personal interaction, to where, can I say hello to the plaintiff? I mean,
Right.
may I go shake the hand of the attorney for the other side, get to know the other side, because sometimes it's about humanizing as well. It's not all about dollars and cents. It's about humanizing. Say, you know what? I'm not this grumpy old person that you think is behind the phone here. I'm actually a nice guy who we do want to get this case settled, and I do feel um, sympathy for your client's injuries, and hope that she gets better. And so yeah, like I said, I've been doing this I started out doing auto, as most people who come into claims, the first the first line of claims that you're ever handling is auto claims, first party auto claims, and then you go from there. I started out doing auto at the Hartford, and then probably a good 5 years. Then I went into GL. Then I supervised a bit when I was in the auto unit at Crum. Then I went to Seneca. And then ever since, I started out as a claims rep and worked my way all the way up to assistant vice president. And then, and hopefully higher than that as time goes on. Hopefully not right on the doorsteps of retirement, but, yep, bodily injury is my forte, my area of expertise, but I am equipped to handle a number of different aspects of the insurance claims out there.
Now, when you mentioned that, talk about mediations and negotiation, is there, and obviously we have a lot of attorneys who listen to this podcast, but are there, any pet peeves you have, or good points that you have that you notice in your counsel at mediations, like things that you just hate when they do this, or you appreciate if they come to the table with certain things?
Do you mean defense counsel, or do you mean plaintiff counsel?
Well, I mean, plaintiff's counsel too, but I'm thinking more so defense counsel, like, because I know every adjuster has a different mentality when they come to mediations, and how
Right.
they like mediations to proceed, and what role they want to play versus what role they want their attorney to play. Sometimes, the adjuster wants to take control of the mediation, and other times they want their counsel to take control. Everyone's a little bit different. So I'm just curious to see, what your preferences are walking into mediation with your counsel.
Well, I'm glad that you asked that, because I always tell my attorneys prior to the mediation, you're going to discuss the facts of the case. I'm going to hold the bag of cash, and when it's time for me to chime in, I will chime in on a case. So simple mediation, sometimes I'll have these mediations that last an hour. It's pretty cut and dry. Our counsel is going to argue the facts of the case, etc. And and what I do, I like to have pre-mediation meetings with my counsel. Say, okay, this is going to be a strategy here, and we could say, you know what, we think the case could be worth $750. We want to try to bring this in for a certain amount here. We'll try to bring this in for like $450. This is going to be the strategy here. We're going to focus on this here. So we have some sort of a game plan before we go into the mediation. It's not like, you get on the mediation here and then all of a sudden you don't know who's leading what, who's saying what. So we do have these pre-mediation meetings. And I always say to them, you're going to discuss, because you know the case. It's been in litigation. I'm going to give you the opportunity, because it gives me the opportunity to evaluate them to see if they know the case. And because I know the case, I want to see if you know the case, and if you're going to basically use all the arguments that we discussed during the mediation. I always try to tell my attorneys as well, going into the mediations, to not be confrontational, because if it gets confrontational, that's when I get involved. I said, you know what, you sit back. I'm going to be the bad guy here. Always said the attorneys are going to be the good guys. I'm going to be the bad guy at these mediations. So, I start out my mediation, I shake the hand of the adversary, the plaintiff attorneys. If the client, and I always insist that the clients, his clients, are there, because it's good, because you want to make sure that offers are being extended. Uh, and you know, and usually these mediations, they separate you afterwards in rooms, or they'll mediate or step out and talk to this person and that person. But mine's a straightforward, pretty much. I'm confident. We have counsel that's been on our panel for many years. We have a comfort level of working together, and also I have a comfort level because we somewhat come to a consensus on what mediator we pick as well. So some mediators are more interactive. Then you have some mediators that are just carrying the ball back and forth, carrying numbers back and forth. I will get involved in discussion of the mediation if it gets very spirited. And when I mean very spirited, is to where if there's if we come to somewhat of a stalemate as far as dollars and cents here and what's being demanded and what's being offered, then I will get involved. I remember one case, that's what Jams, where there was a stalemate. I was with another co-defendant carrier, and that mediator did something that I've never seen before. And what that mediator did was he pulled me and the other claims person out from the meeting, away from our counsel, and put us in a room together with plaintiff counsel alone. And just us three had a discussion. The demand was like 4.5 million at the time. We had a come to Jesus moment discussion with plaintiff counsel. After the meeting, came back out and stuff, and that number went way down, and we eventually got the case settled. So it like sometimes like me, it depends on the type of personality you're dealing with as far as plaintiff counsel, as well as the mediators, how the mediator is going to go, and it also tells me how much participation I really need to be involved in with this mediation here. Can I let my attorney carry the torch, or do I need to step in? Because sometimes the perception is by plaintiff counsel is that defense counsel is scared. Defense counsel is trying to impress his client. Therefore, we don't know if the defense counsel is telling the truth. So sometimes, the plaintiff, I may have to say to it at a mediation, I have the money, I make the decisions, I agree with my counsel. This is the story here. He's not telling you something that's not true. This is what we believe in. If you want to get the case settled, and I always say at a mediation, when you're mediating a case, when both sides want to get a deal done, it will get done. It's always when one side is coming there just to for a fact-finding session rather than trying to get rid of the case. So like I said, it all depends. And you do have some claims professionals that are somewhat, they don't want to get involved. They may be a bit shy. They don't feel as confident about speaking. So they'll just kind of sit back and let the attorney just carry the whole show. So like I said, it depends on the strength of the plaintiff counsel, and something you have to do your homework on. Who's plaintiff counsel? Is he a heavy hitter, or is it somebody who they're sitting in an associate who doesn't really know the case here, to where you can kind of like kind of steer him and kind of I'm not saying manipulate him, but convince them that their case is not as big as they think it is.
Yeah.
So again, it's all about personality. It's all about preparation. And my participation in mediation, it's usually, especially when I had a mediation last week in California. It was 7 insurance carriers there at the mediation. Everybody has a role when they participate in these mediations. And, like we may have one person that may be more technical, say, okay, you know what, I'm doing a time on risk analysis here. These are the percentages here. And these mediations, the last mediation I had was like 9.5 hours. So towards the end, at a stalemate, that's when I step in, I start pushing buttons. So, okay, you know what? I like to talk to plaintiff counsel alone. Put me in a room with the plaintiff counsel. And I push buttons, and I wind up getting, and sometimes you have other people that may not be kicking up more money and say, look at the finances here. Pay more now or pay a lot more later on when you're going through discovery, depositions, and then the possibility of getting a verdict and getting hit with attorney fees. So it can be a lot more. So sometimes you have to not only negotiate with plaintiff counsel, but you may have an insured policyholder there, and they may be pushing, why are you paying so much money on this case here? then you say, look, if we don't settle the case, your policy does not have attorney fee coverage. Therefore, if there's a verdict, you could be on the hook for all of the attorney fees. And so, it's like when you at mediation, you're really negotiating not with just plaintiff counsel. You could be negotiating with your own superiors because you may need more money to get rid of the case. You may come there to mediation because mediations are unpredictable because a lot of times these plaintiff attorneys don't show you their whole bag of tricks until you get there. And all of a sudden you get, oh, I got a medical record here that, wait a second, now I got to reevaluate the case. So do I cancel the mediation? Do I take this medical record, review it, make some calls and see if I can get some more money out of my superiors? So it's just so many different dynamics involving mediation. And it all, like I said, depends on the personality of your defense counsel, the experience of your defense counsel, and how much rope you're going to give that defense counsel. And if you feel that there's some sort of weakness there, you may have to step in and give him an assist on some of the different matters that may come up.
Yeah, and sometimes it's the other defendants that can cause more havoc to the mediation than the opposing parties.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I mean, there's been so many mediations I've been at that like someone digs their heels in the sand for no good reason. And that can hold up settlements.
Yes.
Like everyone else is being perfectly reasonable except that one party.
We usually use the gang up approach. So if you have, it's like if you're in a jury, if you're in a room and you're deliberating and you got one holdout there, then everybody starts beating up on the other one there, and you have to use different type of tactics. Sometimes I'll use a look. I understand your position. I understand that you're paying more than what you want to pay, but we're also paying more as well. And I actually, in my last mediation, I told the claims professional, I said, we need you to push this over the edge here. Instead of being adversarial and beating up and threats, I go with that approach there because it softens them up a bit to where they'll think about it and stuff. And, and eventually you push the case over the edge rather than getting them to be very defensive. You kind of say, look, everybody else here is paying more. We don't want to pay more, but we really need you. And a lot of times they will think about it and come through. So
Yeah.
That's my approach.
Well, I hate to wrap this up, but we've been going for an hour, and I feel like we have an hour and a half of more content. So we might need to do a part 2 with you, Derrick.
Sure, no problem.
To be continued.
But before we close up, I wanted to ask you this, and I ask this of pretty much every guest, that looking back now on your career and your life, what piece of advice would you give your younger self that you could have utilized throughout your progression?
I would have say that if I had to give myself advice back then, I would probably say, what, probably should have gotten a law degree. That was number one. I first gotten a law degree. Well, I think that I think I was a bit shy when I first came into the industry, and now I'm just more open. I'm more confident. I would probably say that I just, if I had to change anything, I probably would have been more, I would have gotten myself out there a bit more, did more public speaking, did more seminars, participated a bit more, and got to learn more about the other aspects of insurance. Because I think back then I was just more focused on claims, and I really didn't understand how the entire industry worked. And I'm now learning that, and I've learned that over the last 10, 15 years of how the whole, like if one part falls, everything falls. I just think back then I was more, and it may have been the fault of, people I worked for, where I was just really segregated to just claims. I didn't know anything else. I didn't know underwriting. I didn't know marketing. I didn't know the other aspects, the actuarial, how important the actuarial numbers are. I didn't really know how important reserves are. Like if you're not properly reserved, how that can really hurt the company at the end of the year when they're trying to figure out the company's finances. So that's one of the main things that I would have probably changed, or probably would have wanted to learn more back then, is just learning how the entire aspect, how the entire insurance industry works, as far as, claims, underwriting, finances, accounting, and just putting everything together. And this is how it functions, because the more you understand how a carrier functions, the better off you are, and the better understanding you have as to why you have to do certain things as far as claims is concerned, and why it's important, and why maybe you may have gotten a good result, but then, if you spent, $100,000 on a claim to settle for 25,000, that's not really a good outcome, even though it looks good on the
Right.
surface. So just learning, just being more versatile as far as not just claims, but just the entire insurance industry itself. I think that was very important for me to learn during my later time. And I think if I, like I said, if I'm teaching, and I teach people that's coming into the industries, and say, look, you have to learn about the whole schematic. It's not just claims that's important here. It's underwriting. It's accounting. It's the support staff. It's rating. It's loss control, things like that. Being able to look in the underwriting file. And back then, I never got to look through an underwriting file. I didn't know what an underwriting file looks at. Being able to look at policies, being able to understand why they charged a rate that they charge, why that, depending on how much you pay on a claim, is going to affect underwriting, as far as either non-renewing an account, or maybe increasing the premiums on the account. Understanding why an insured is calling up, saying, why did you pay so much out on this claim here? Because now my policy got canceled and I can't book. I'm trying to book with another carrier, and understanding where they're coming from. Those are things that I did not understand back when I first started in the industry, where I clearly have a picture as to how the whole thing works at this point in time.
And I think those are great points, because those are a lot of things I think attorneys also lack an understanding of.
Absolutely.
And gaining that understanding helps us like better handle our cases, because we understand the backside and for the insurance company and the claim side. I mean, and the more that we understand about the bigger picture, like the better that we can do, and then the better that your file looks, and and everyone can be happy.
Yes, exactly.
So I think the more that we talk about all of this too, it's extremely helpful for everyone in our industry to work together and have a better understanding of how the whole machine works, or how the whole team works, to keep with the team theme.
Exactly.
Well, Derrick, I truly appreciate you taking the time and coming on. I appreciate talking to you. I'm serious. I think we need to do a part 2, because I feel like we only scratched the surface. I even feel bad cutting you off, but I don't want to keep this much longer than an hour.
Okay.
We'd lose a lot of people.
Exactly. No problem.
So we'll have to do part 2,
Yeah,
or
sure.
hour 2 and part 2. But for our listeners out there, if you like what you hear, please remember to like and subscribe to The Defense Never Rests on Apple Podcasts. And you can also find us on YouTube at The Defense Never Rests Podcast.